Welcome everyone to our Survivor Series 2024 review. And I have to say the show was a solid thumbs in the middle. We're going to get into the show, but right off the top, the triple threat nailed it. The main event was pretty good. Everything else, I don't know. So we're going to start with the main event, of course, as we usually do with our pay-per-view reviews. Bloodline Roman versus Bloodline Solo in War Games. So these guys did Monday Night Football style introductions where Jimmy Uso saying he's from No Yeet University and Bronson Reed claiming to be from Tsunami State. Here's the weird thing. You know, there was so much heat for the Punk and Roman cinematic, quote unquote, conversation between the two on SmackDown, which it gets a completely undue amount of hatred whenever they do these quote unquote cinematic scenes with like what they did with Cody and Roman. It always gets an undue amount of hatred from people who think that everything should happen in the ring or that you can't do any sort of special lighting or special promos or anything like that. Everything has to take place in the ring. And it's, of course, ridiculous. And, of course, it's tribal. I kind of want to expand on this thought. But one of the things that I do see is I saw this guy. He said that wrestling has what he called it, an inferiority complex. That it would rather try to be like a bad movie than good wrestling. Which, of course, came from one of the nerds who reads the Wrestling Observer newsletter and absolutely believes everything that is put in it. But it seems to me that people who don't understand that at least this is still wrestling, considering there's not murder or cannibalism, which some people think that, that's what, Lucha Underground, where you had a guy who apparently was eating other people. And they're like, oh, that was awesome. That was great. That was fantastic. Or you have these mini movies that Darby Allin does, which involves like hella editing. Or you have like, Daniel Garcia's mom, which I don't know if that was a voicemail that they played in an edited video. It's like all these things are the same thing. It's just it's not even really to hype up a match as much as it was to have a conversation that really didn't consist of much, but I'm not here for you, I'm here for Paul. And then that's it. It got a completely undue amount of hate. But this did not get any hate at all. This Monday Night Football, and I thought this was corny. The Monday Night Football thing, I didn't like it. I think it wasn't a good look for somebody like Jacob Fatu, because everybody else is joking and playing around, and Jacob Fatu's like, I love you, Solo, which is humorous, but this guy's supposed to be a killer. It's it needs to be a little bit more serious. And then you got Tama Tonga doing all that stuff. You're like, it's a little silly. So I didn't like that, and whatever. So unlike in the previous match, they decided to actually do something interesting to start this match. They had Jey Uso and Tama Tonga start it, but it took them 2 minutes to touch. Jey Uso was walking. He was going through the ring like landmines was in the ring. And I'm like, why is it taking him so long to do literally anything? Jimmy Uso ended up busting out a Whisper in the Wind a little bit later. Jimmy Uso had a pretty good coming out party here in terms of him being a solo act and doing more. Of course, the match story was about Roman and Punk. The subtle glares and looks they were giving each other. As Solo, stopped, I think it was Tongaloa from going out, and he sent Jacob Fatu. Roman did the same thing. He stopped Punk from leaving and sent Sami Zayn out there, which caused heat between Punk and Roman, and they were uncomfortably in that cell together. And then when the next time it was somebody to come in, Roman was planning to go in himself fourth, and Punk pushed past him to go in. So it was like, ooh, And it was all about showing that Solo's team is together. It's a cult again. They all understand that Solo is the leader. versus Roman's team, which is a ragtag of individuals, especially with him and Punk not really being on the best terms. So when it was a 5-4 match, once Solo got into the ring, they started to dominate. The Bloodline Solo started to dominate. They started whooping their ass. And then they did something weird that was very awkward. They actually chained Roman out of the match. So they locked Roman out, which I kept thinking to myself, like, the match can't start until Roman is in the ring. So technically, you can't win until Roman gets in the ring, which of course is the huge negative to the entire concept. Is the match can't start until everybody's in. So Roman had to climb the cage. I know he was not thrilled about that. Whoever pitched that idea is probably going to end up getting fired, because Roman had to do more work than he normally does. So he climbed the cage. He fought 3 or 4 guys playing King of the Hill, fighting them off the top of the cage. And then he did a jump off the top rope, which was probably the first time I ever seen Roman Reigns jump off the top rope. He jumped onto the pile. They all caught him. That was fine. Once Roman Reigns was in the ring, he had an opportunity to follow up and try to win the match and try to continue beating on Solo's bloodline, but instead he went to go help his teammates who had gotten their asses whooped just a few minutes before. He walked around helping everybody up one at a time and left Punk on purpose to get up on his own. So then they do the old lineup, and then they try to fight in the space between the ropes, on the metal part between the ropes. I feel like it was a little off, because that little divider right there it gets on my nerves so bad. But the people were amped for the two groups to like crash into each other, but you have to get between the ropes to get into that middle space, so that the trench, as I will call it there, the trench where the metal part is between the two rings. I hate the two rings, by the way. I hate war games. Everybody knows this. So as they're scrapping in the trench or whatever, they just kind of it's trying to get the crowd into it. Heyman is yelling at Punk and Roman about working together and the power of friendship, and they need to conquer this thing together. So they start fighting sort of as a team, sort of. At one point, Roman spears CM Punk accidentally because Solo Sikoa dodged his spear. That was kind of a sloppy spot. It can't say much about it, but it was kind of sloppy. In comparison to what we saw in that first match, it was minor, okay? Jacob Fatu tried to do a double jump moonsault. I believe it was onto CM Punk onto the table, but he fell and injured his leg. I thought it was a shoot at first because of the way he was, selling it. And then I was like, maybe it's not, maybe he's just had to cover up the fact that he did slip and fall. I guess we'll find out if he really did get hurt or not. But he started getting back into the match pretty normally, like a couple of minutes later. So whatever it was, it probably stunned him a little bit. So if it's too bad, then at least he got a main event out of this thing. Bronson Reed tries to hit a tsunami off the top of the cage onto Roman Reigns, but CM Punk snatches Roman Reigns off the table just in time as the table explodes. And now Roman and Punk they're good buddies now. Roman actually helps Punk up. They fight together. They go around beating up all the members of the bloodline. Well, Solo's bloodline, let's say. And then ends up being 5-on-1. Solo Sikoa is surrounded, and he's given his training day opportunity. Like when Denzel was surrounded in Training Day. I'm going to put cases on all you bitches. So instead of being super animated about it, Solo just kind of looked at him. It wasn't supposed to be like this. It wasn't supposed to be like this. It was like this was his chance to really ham it up. I would have went full Denzel in Training Day. If you'd have encircled me like that, I'd have went full Denzel on it. It would have been great. It would have been fun. But I'm pretty sure he probably didn't think about that. But then they all hit big moves on him, super kicks and GTSs and spears, and Solo Sikoa was pinned. So they win. Roman's team wins. Roman pins Solo, just like I said it should have happened. Everybody hugs and shakes hands. They pose. They milk that celebration, and that was it. There was no surprises that came afterwards. The way that they were milking it, I was expecting a surprise, but nothing happened. At the end of the match, however, Punk hugged Paul and said that they owed each other. He will be coming for that favor, and that was kind of it. Roman's team just won, and they pushed it as a must-win for Roman's team, and he did win. The quality of the match itself was pretty solid. For somebody who doesn't really like the War Games concept, this was still a good match because it had other plots involved with it. Even though the match couldn't actually start until everybody's in the ring. I mean, it's almost 30 minutes, before anybody can get pinned or submitted. Which of course was a joke because Tama Tonga tried to pin Jey Uso early, and it was like, I should have won by now, because he tried to pin a man when you can't pin him. Dumb, right? But there was the subplots, the stuff with Roman and Punk was okay too. So I liked the match. It might be better on a second watch, but on the first watch I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. I was surprised there was no blood, because I thought Punk would have politicked his way into some blood on this thing, but it didn't really need it, if we're being honest. Jacob Fatu looked extremely strong in this match. He was constantly no-selling guys and, super kicking dudes, and he was always jumping off something on top of some guys. He got pretty much written out of the match when Jimmy Uso jumped off the top of the cage onto him through a table. That was pretty dope. Like I said, Jimmy Uso got a chance to really show out here. So I thought the quality of the match was, in comparison to other War Games matches, it was pretty good. All right, let's go into the World Heavyweight Championship bout. Gunther defeats Damian Priest. People like to gush over Gunther. I think his finisher is boring. It's a boring finish. He wins with a sleeper hold because Damian Priest was not responding, which of course is a disconnect from the entirety of the match, where Gunther has been working the arm and shoulder of Damian Priest. This chokehold has nothing to do with that, but whatever. The match was pretty long. Damian Priest had some pretty good spots in there. There was a spot where Gunther had his arms, and he was chopping his arm, and Damian Priest started to fire back, trying to get Gunther to let him go, and then Gunther went for the chop, and then Damian Priest jumped and did like a jump kick or whatever, so that was pretty cool. Damian Priest bust out a second rope hurricanrana, and then followed that up with a razor's edge, but of course Gunther is bulletproof, at least he's not a midget, so you had Gunther working the arm of Damian Priest, and it actually did affect the match, because Damian Priest's finisher is the South of Heaven chokeslam. He kept trying to use that arm to do the chokeslam, but he couldn't lift Gunther with the one arm, which I thought was okay. That was good. It's simple storytelling, nothing too dramatic, nothing complex. You just continue the story that you're telling with the arm. Of course, Gunther follows it up like the Kimura, which I thought would have been a good finish if he'd have tapped out to the Kimura or, whatever. Especially if you're going to go with a submission finish, that probably would have been the best option there. But they decided not to do that. What they decided to do for the finish is have Damian Priest and Gunther both on the top rope, both fall off the top. Damian Priest was like, I hurt my other shoulder. I don't know which one it was. Maybe he was working on the right shoulder and he hurt the other one when he went down. But he told the ref, give me a minute to, get myself together. The ref leaves him outside the ring. He goes into the ring to check on Gunther. While the ref's back is turned, Finn Balor, at least he didn't just come down the ramp. He came through the crowd and jumped off the steps with the coup de grace right into the gullet of Damian Priest. Uh, Gunther sees this, of course, jumps into action and kicks Finn Balor in the face, and then takes advantage, puts Damian Priest in the sleeper. Damian Priest just nods off just like everybody else, and Gunther wins the match. It is absolutely dreadful finish. I don't like this finish. I do not like it. I do not like these sleeper finishes. It's stupid. We are beyond this. And I know he's trying to bring back traditional pro wrestling, but when you're working the arm, a sleeper hold doesn't work as a finisher. Okay, you know, you have to be creative. I thought that Gunther was the kind of guy that would use whatever it takes to win. So that would have been a much better usage of any other hold that he knows how to do. I just don't like the idea that, okay, we don't want to pin Damian Priest because we want to put the heat on Finn Balor. So what we want to do is he's just going to nod off. It's like, that's whack. That's really whack. And now they're going to continue the Finn Balor Damian Priest story, which I like Finn Balor more than Damian Priest, if we're being honest. But I think we're at the point where I don't believe Finn Balor is going to get where he needs to be, where he should have been years ago. We're almost 10 years off of his huge push at SummerSlam 2016. It's been almost 10 years. I think he's been in WWE 10 years, because I believe he was in NXT in 2015 or 2014 or something like that. So it's been a while. And I know that Triple H is like, it's never too late, never too late, never too late. And I'm like, it's kind of late. The sun's getting real low on a lot of these people that you're trying to push here. But I don't want to say I don't want to see this. I'm not thrilled about it, though. I'm not thrilled about Damian Priest and Finn Balor. I wasn't thrilled about this Damian Priest match anyway. And the match itself, and mechanically, it was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. Was it a banger? It was a good match. I wouldn't call it a banger. You know, I'm pretty sure somebody's going to give like 4 stars or something like that. And it's completely not that for me. I mean, it probably because I never believed that Damian Priest was going to win. You know, I never bought into any of the spots except for when he nailed the second rope Hurricanrana into the Razor's Edge. I thought, okay, maybe he'll win. But when that wasn't the finish, I was like, he's definitely losing. So I never bought in. So it's hard for me to say a match is good if I never believed that the other guy could win. So Damian Priest, he's just going to finish his forever feud with Finn Balor that's been going on for a year and a half or something. Whatever. But what about Gunther? Now what do we do with Gunther? Do we include Gunther into this forever feud now? Because that's what it seems like the direction they're going in. Is that Finn Balor interfered in Gunther's match, and he's going to have a problem with that, and they're going to have words about that, which is probably going to lead to Finn Balor and Gunther, who are 2 heels, which will more likely have Damian Priest interfere in that match and lead to some kind of triple threat match later on. Maybe. I'm not thrilled about the triple threat idea. I think that Gunther he's been damaged. Losing to Cody damaged Gunther. Not because he lost to Cody, but because it derailed what he was doing. You know? Them having that hard pivot into working with Cody and now trying to come out of that has been problematic. He has not been successfully able to do it yet. So I'm thinking maybe that was the problem, but it's also an issue that they don't have any hot heels or baby faces for Gunther to work with. You know, it just had Damian Priest. He was the only one. And the only other hot heel in the company is Dominic Mysterio, and they don't treat him like a serious threat. And he wouldn't be if they tried to make him one because of his character. So there's that. Match 3 was a banger, however. Sheamus, Ludwig Kaiser, Braun Breaker for the Intercontinental Championship. Braun Breaker wins the match. Really fun match between these guys. Braun Breaker actually pins Sheamus with the spear. And it was a good match. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, you had 3 guys in there who can't have bad matches. I mean, Ludwig Kaiser he's tremendous. I've been tooting the horn of I've been tooting the horn of Ludwig Kaiser for a long time now. I think him being a lackey to Gunther has put a glass ceiling over him where he probably would flourish much better on his own. But he's stuck in Gunther's shadow as Gunther's pawn and his goon. And I don't necessarily like that. Not really necessarily a big fan of that. But Braun Breaker is he's a marvel, you know. He's doing these hurricanranas and stuff with ease. He's showing such tremendous athleticism. He did a jumping shoulder block that looks like he fell from the ceiling. Of course, Sheamus and his incredibly physical style, you know, gave him 10 beats to the belfry to Ludwig Kaiser outside the ring on a barricade. Kaiser showing his viciousness, attacking Sheamus with the shillelagh, really scarred him up and everything too. And it was just a really good match, you know. As far as a guy who didn't like triple threat matches, I thought this was pretty good. You know, it was pretty damn good. What's next, however? Well, Sheamus took the pin here, so I don't know how you continue this because Sheamus took the pin. There was a spot in the match where Sheamus had the match won after a bro kick, and Ludwig Kaiser snatched the referee out of the ring. Maybe you could use that, and that was a great spot, by the way, because I legitimately thought Sheamus was going to win there. And I was about to be very pissed. I was about to start writing with all uppercase letters if Braun Breaker got pinned at that point in time. I'd have been very mad. And this review would be very different if he'd have lost that match. But Sheamus, you got to keep him in the conversation for the Intercontinental title. But I don't think he should just continuously get matches for it. You know? So I think Kaiser has failed to win this title. Sheamus has failed to win this title. They have failed to win the title together. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but this is just a mirror of the Andrade, Carmelo Hayes, United States Championship thing, where it's really a feud between Kaiser and Sheamus. They're the ones that are really feuding, but the Intercontinental title somehow got caught up in this. And all that means is that Braun Breaker is probably going to lose the belt to like Apollo Crews or something like that out of nowhere, because that's what happened in the U.S. title story, right? But they just did the same thing all over again. 2 guys are feuding. They're having a pretty good feud with pretty good matches, but they're fighting a lot. And then you just throw the mid-card belt right there in the middle of it. That's exactly what they did here. Hopefully Braun Breaker could get a fresh opponent. I don't know who that could possibly be. You know, I would have preferred if somebody like Chad Gable. I think Chad Gable would be a great opponent. I think somebody like Otis would be a great opponent. I would assume Otis would wear pants for that because he wasn't wearing pants in some commercial they did tonight. I wasn't thrilled with that commercial. I did not like that. But he needs somebody that he could work with. And I think Otis would be a good opponent because Otis is big. Otis is strong. Otis is over as a babyface. Is he a legitimate challenger for the Intercontinental title? Not really. But somebody like Otis could be very interesting in that spot. And I think it needs to be a babyface. You could also, of course, use Seth Rollins, or you could also use Bronson Reed. But if you don't want to put him on somebody of that level, I hate to say that Bronson Reed's on a higher level, but Bronson Reed just worked a pay-per-view main event, so it is what it is. You don't want to go back to Jey Uso or back to Sami Zayn. You want to go somewhere forward. And I'm thinking about the Raw roster off the top of my head. And unless you're going to call somebody up, you're going to have to use the guys that you have. I think maybe having Braun Breaker have singles matches with like Julius Creed could bang. If you're just talking about banger matches and you just don't want to go back to Sheamus, you can go with like Julius Creed. You can go with Chad Gable. You know, you can go with Rey Mysterio. I think Rey Mysterio will be a good opponent for him. Dragon Lee would be a good opponent for him. I think they just had that match though. Like there's a whole lot of things you could do for Braun Breaker to fill his winter. It's all about whether Triple H cares enough to do it, and he actually wants to push young guys and not just older talent, which is Triple H's favorite thing to do. Ludwig Kaiser, I don't know. I mean, again, he's stuck in Gunther's shadow. Not much he's going to be able to do on his own until he breaks free. So, I guess we'll see. United States Championship, Shinsuke Nakamura defeats LA Knight. And people are looking at each other. And some people are happy about this. Some people are not. I think that because Nakamura a couple of years ago was universally liked, there was a lot of people who thought Nakamura was being unfairly buried or unfairly treated as a gatekeeper, unfairly jobbed out, that he was working hard even though he was physically washed even at that time. Now he's coming out. He's basically, again, a member of the Foot Clan. He's Kabuki Mura now because he's spitting mist all over the place. I don't know what this character is. And he just beats LA Knight. He poked him in the eye while they were in the trench, the space between the two rings. Did a Scorpion Death Drop on the metal part of the two rings. Followed it up with a Kinshasa and won the match. And at least it was a reasonable finish. 100% reasonable finish. But Nakamura is a Triple H guy. You know, that's the only way I could think of this. Like, you had the entire summer was nothing but Andrade and Carmelo Hayes and those guys putting on quote unquote bangers every other week. And then they got thrown in the U.S. title feud. You know, LA Knight was knocking them around like the Three Stooges. Now they're out of the picture. And Nakamura has one match since April and won the title out of nowhere. Look, it's an opportunity to put LA Knight back in the chase position. And, you know, you instantly made Nakamura a hotter heel, I guess. But I don't like this. I don't like this. It's not because I don't like Nakamura. I don't like this version of Nakamura because I'm not a big fan of the Nakamura spitting mist all over the place. I liked Michael Jackson Nakamura. Even when he was a heel, I liked that. I don't know what this Foot Clan member, Shredder Mora, I'm not so sure what this is. So I'm not a big fan of this version of Shinsuke Nakamura. I was just waiting for LA Knight, again, to get some fresh opponents. You know, there has to be space for guys like Grayson Waller and Austin Theory to get a shot at LA Knight. And I know he's wrestled those guys before, and I think he's beaten them both before. But, you know, something to freshen things up. Now, not Nakamura's a champion. You really can't see nothing but this thing with LA Knight continuing. With LA Knight now in the chase position, chasing the U.S. title. And I'm kind of like, I don't know. Because LA Knight's title run was so unconvincing. It was so unimpressive. And part of that was the booking. He wasn't featured on TV all the time. He actually spent most of the time not on TV. And he's often facing guys who weren't over, who were being 50-50 booked to death, you know. And I saw somebody say, you know, Nakamura is going to end up being a transitional champion. And that could very well be true, but transitioning to who? You know, there's nobody else hot. That's the thing. In order to be a transitional champion, there has to be somebody, you know, usually somebody that's on the opposite side. So, you know, LA Knight was a babyface, and you don't want to have him lose to another babyface, so you would give it to a heel, so that heel can drop it to a different babyface. But they can't do that because who's the other babyface? Who's the hot babyface that is going to beat Nakamura? It's not Andrade. He just lost to Nakamura, so it's not him. Who else is it going to be? You know, there is nobody. So it's like transitioning from who? Transitioning from LA Knight to LA Knight? That's not what a transitional champion is. So No, I don't know what this is. I don't know what's going on here. I don't care, to be quite honest. This title is cold. It was interesting. It seemed like they were just hot-shotting this. There's a lot of conspiracy theorists out there who are kind of like, Triple H's dislike of LA Knights has caused this problem. And I'm actually getting closer and closer to the conspiracy theory myself because of the way he was booked and because of how long it took for him to get it. It took forever for LA Knight to get the belt, and then he finally did get it. They kind of tied an anchor around his ankle and slowed his push. He didn't get the mega push anymore. He's supposed to be doing open challenges. He didn't do that. Then it gave him the same people he had already beat in the open challenges. He wasn't really featured. I mean, open challenges are already lazy. He should have had a storyline, that he could work in. He decided not to even do that. I don't know what's going on with LA Knight. And it does basically say, hey, Kevin Nash ain't bullshitting. When the click guys kind of don't like somebody, it's not really well hidden. And Nash and Triple H are good buddies. I know Triple H says some things to cover for Nash sometimes. Like when he says, nobody texts me during the show. It's like Nash ain't going on the podcast just lying for no reason. I know that they have had conversations about this stuff. They've had conversations about this guy. They had to have had conversations about this guy. So I won't say that Triple H don't like him because, to be quite honest, there are people who are treated worse than LA Knight. And Triple H hates LA Knight and he's been pushing him for over a year. And that includes giving him his name back. What do you think he thinks about Austin Theory or Grayson Waller or Santos Escobar or Andrade or Carmelo Hayes, whom he beats routinely every single week and gives them nothing? So if you think that Triple H just hates LA Knight and it's just like a blind hatred, then he hates all the mid-carders on SmackDown because he booked LA Knight better than 99% of all of those mid-carders. And that's the problem. Most of these guys are just not over and they have nothing going for them. Now let's get to what was undoubtedly one of the worst War Games matches of all time. Team Liv versus Team Rhea. This match was trash. From beginning to end, it was not good. The last 10 minutes were okay, or acceptable, I would say. But the entirety of the contest, trash. And it was down bad from the beginning because they put Nia Jax in. The first leg of the match is Nia effing Jax, the human deep freezer herself. This was a disaster, and she's in there with Bayley. Loves me some Auntie Pam, but she's always in such bad situations, man. She's always in bad situations. And then you had it was just a comedy of errors, okay? Let's just go through some of the things that I wrote down. So this is all before the match actually picks up and becomes good. So Naomi comes out and she's wearing a birthday hat to the ring. Absolutely no intensity. I know it's her birthday. I get that. But she's wearing a birthday hat to a cage match. It's ludicrous that she would even think to do that. Like, why would you do that? So now the crowd is not chanting for anything that's happening in the match. They're chanting happy birthday to Naomi. Okay, great. So Nia Jax has a steel chair and Naomi turtles up, covers her head so she wouldn't get hit in the head. And Nia Jax looks like she's trying to hit Naomi with the chair, but couldn't find a safe spot to hit her because she couldn't hit her in the head, so she just kind of lightly tapped her on the leg. And this would, of course, lead to a chain of people throughout the match having steel chairs and barely swinging them. If you thought that the Hulk Hogan steel chair spot from WCW was bad, watch this match. I think one person throughout the entirety of the match, swung a chair with any sort of conviction. Everybody swung a chair like they were pillow fighting with their best friend. Or they were pillow fighting with a toddler. Like, I don't want to hurt you. Deep. It's like, what the fuck is the point of you having a steel chair if you're not going to hit somebody with it? I get that Nia Jax didn't want to hit Naomi in the head with the chair. But she barely touched her in the leg with the chair. She barely touched her at all, period. This was so dumb. Then you had Io Sky. She comes in. She straps a garbage can around her own body. And then she climbs the top of the cage. And she just leaves it up there for future usage, apparently. Then we had Io Sky and Tiffany Stratton bust out into Olympic-level gymnastics in the middle of the match, where they're doing tumbling routines. I don't understand what the fuck is going on at this point. I'm like, why are they doing this? At this point, every other spot in the match has very obvious cooperation. It is very obviously choreographed. You see people like Bianca waiting for other people to do their spot. And I think Bianca was trying to do the Van Daminator, where, you know, she throws the chair, you catch it, she kicks it or something like that. And she was trying to do that with somebody, but she had to wait for them to get in position. And then she had to wait for them to raise the chair. It was like, this is ridiculous. This is terrible. There was so much of that. People waiting for other people to do stuff. It was ridiculous. It was absolutely insane. Liv Morgan is the last person to come into the match. She's the only person who actually sold the cage. Because at this point, Rhea Ripley is the only one standing. She's wearing some kind of demon mask. I don't know what that's about. I know she injured her face, but then she took the mask off later on, so I don't understand why she's wearing a demon head. That was kind of creepy. So Liv leaves. She returns with a baseball bat. So she's got a baseball bat. Doesn't do her any good. Rhea Ripley, of course, is just, beating her up. So all the heels jump Rhea Ripley. And they start to have Liv Morgan blast Rhea Ripley again and again in the ribs and back with a baseball bat. But you would not notice that from the finish, where there's not a scratch on her. And this, which is a very important part of the match, by the way, is the fact that they're getting heat on Rhea. This is irrelevant just minutes later that she was getting beat with these bats. It is irrelevant just minutes later. Io Sky is on one side of the ring. Tiffany Stratton's on the other side of the ring, and they both jump off simultaneously. Io puts the garbage can on her head again to do a moonsault, while Tiffany Stratton does a swanton bomb. They were in separate rings. And then we find that Tiffany Stratton has the Money in the Bank briefcase hidden in a garbage can in the ring. So she pulls it out. She's going to use it. But then here comes Raquel Rodriguez, who is like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And so she gets stopped. Then there's a fire extinguisher that occurs that sets everything off. Raquel is then handcuffed to the top rope. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is crazy. Okay. Now, the big spot of the match, one of the bigger spots, is Naomi and Bianca both powerbombing Nia Jax through the table. All right. So then there was that. On the other side of the ring, Rhea Ripley is fussing with Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan is doing all sorts of things to her. Rhea, who supposedly has a damaged face, is still throwing headbutts. She just got beat with bats, mind you, and she's still standing up straight. She's not selling them. She takes with a code breaker with the chair to the face. She's, of course, still going. This is the same person who just had a mask on, right? And now she's maskless. I mean, it's her raw face, supposedly injured eyes or whatever, and she's perfectly fine. Liv Morgan climbs the top of the cage. She's trying to do Oblivion off the cage. Doesn't work. Rhea Ripley gives her the Riptide off the top of, I don't know if it was the top rope, second rope, whatever, through a table. Liv Morgan is pinned and her team loses. This was dreadful. It was absolutely dreadful. It was not good. I mean, Naomi coming to the ring in a happy birthday hat was as ridiculous as when the Ultimate Warrior showed up wearing a hat to that scene with Jerry the King Lawler. It was so out of character. Like, this is a grudge match with, hated enemies, and this is a cage. Nobody cares about the cage element. Nobody's even selling the cage. Nobody cares about the cage. And we got people fucking around. I mean, this was in the men's match too, but it was far more prominent in the women's match, that before anybody got into the ring, they had to get a weapon. So you got to bring a weapon in the ring with you. It's like, why did you just bring like a golf cart full of weapons or something and park them outside the ring? Or, everybody's looking under the ring for something. This was not good. And a lot of it was terrible because Nia Jax was in the first 5 minutes. So you got almost no work rate in there, which would have been sensible that it would have been Candice LeRae that would have started the match and not Nia Jax. But nope, it was Nia Jax. Mistake. Nia Jax should have come in last. That's what you do. I understand they was trying to be subversive, and that's the problem with trying to be subversive. Is sometimes you really ruin what you're trying to do. So my heart was swollen with pride as I strolled through social media and saw everybody hating this match, saying it should have been a 5-on-5 traditional Survivor Series match. And I'm like, I was saying this from the beginning. I mean, it couldn't be more obvious to anybody not named Triple H that this match should not have been a War Games match in the first place. It shouldn't have been a War Games match in the first place. So all the Liv fans are mad because Rhea pinned Liv again. And Rhea no soul getting hit with a bat 100 times. I'm with them on the bat thing, but I kind of figured Rhea would pin Liv. This storyline is not over, by the way. They have been feuding literally since Liv returned. And when was that? That was before SummerSlam. So they've been feuding all year. And this thing is still not over. It's nowhere near over, as far as I'm concerned. Because I don't think Rhea has even had her match with Raquel Rodriguez yet. Unless they had the match and I don't remember it. So, on the other side, you got Nia Jax, who has now lost seemingly 3 or 4 big matches in a row. She does not, even if you liked her or think that she's effective, she's no longer effective as a heel. You've got Tiffany Stratton, who was in the match. She got over in the match. She looked good. The crowd was into her. But she's a beautiful girl, and it's going to be hard for people to boo her. You haven't really furthered her character or her storyline. Candice LeRae might as well not have even been there, because what the hell was the purpose of that? And that entire team is just a mess. Now, on the other side, you have Io, who is now going to wrestle Liv for the title. And we don't know when that match will be. It's going to be at some point, I suppose, some nebulous point in the future. Bianca still is dealing with the who killed Jade Cargill thing. And there has been no investigation as far as we concerned. Nobody has said, there's video footage or nothing. There's nothing. So we're just kind of skirt on that one. That one's not moving. And Naomi is just there because, yay, feel the glow. And the same thing for Auntie Pam. She's just there along for the ride. It's like, you don't even see a lot of storyline elements coming out of this. Outside of the people who are already feuding when this thing started, there is nothing else for anybody else to get out of this match. I don't understand why you would, I'm going to go back to this. I don't understand why you would put Nia Jax in the first. Nia Jax is going to work the entire match, the entire 30 minutes. We're going to have Nia Jax in there. She was sucking wind 2 minutes in. And I don't blame her. She's a big girl and she's 40. Whoever did this was obviously trolling her. And it was dumb because she's a champion right now. She's just not like, random giantess backstage. She is supposed to be the champion. You're supposed to be making her look strong. Instead, you made her look weak as shit because you put her out there and she got no fucking cardio. They did the same thing with Jey Uso, who has no cardio. They put him out there first, but at least Jey Uso is over. At least the crowd wants to see Jey Uso. They people didn't even want to see Nia Jax, let alone have to absorb 30 minutes of Nia Jax. Triple H to be in jail. Put him in wrestling jail for the stuff that he does to these people. Maybe I'm overthinking this, man. Maybe Naomi's, she didn't get enough happy birthdays on Twitter or something like that. She had to make sure everybody knew it was her birthday. Maybe, they was telling the story of Liv Morgan not having, any upper body strength at all. So when she was hitting Rhea Ripley with this bat, that, it didn't really hurt because, look at Liv Morgan's arms. She could barely lift the bat as it is. But still, my God, it doesn't explain the rest of this stuff. The obvious choreography, the fucking gymnastics, the obvious cooperation, the light intensity of the match, no intensity whatsoever of the match, by the way. These matches just don't work. It doesn't work. Not everybody can do everything. Everything is not for everybody, my man. It's just not the case. This match sucked. It was not good. So, let's talk about the entirety of the show. Okay, so apparently Damian Priest and Finn Balor got into a brawl after the show, which I'm not surprised about. And he got jumped by Damage Control. He got jumped by the Judgment Day. Who cares? There were 5 matches on the show. Let's say the men's War Games match was pretty good. The Triple Threat match was pretty good. Damian Priest versus Gunther was okay. So I'll say 2.5 out of 5. Nakamura and LA Knight. I think it's probably worth half a point. It wasn't the worst match on the show, clearly. But it wasn't a great match either. It was just mid. It was okay. And I guess you can give it a full point because they did a title switch, which I wasn't expecting. So a 3.5 out of 5 in terms of approval rating for each individual match. Nothing was boring, but the women's War Games match was not good, and it sucked. And it wasn't boring, but it sucked. Like what they did do was not good. It was sloppily. It was poorly executed. It was overly choreographed. There was no real B plot into the match. They tried to pull off some really cool spots, and they did pull off one with the simultaneous jump off the top of the cage. But that, of course, meant that both sets of people had to cluster up together to catch them. So, again, obvious cooperation. It was also quite obvious that Tiffany Stratton was waiting for Io Sky on the other side so they can jump at the same time. So it was weird, man. It's a very weird show. It was not good. Booking malpractice for LA Knight. Booking malpractice for Gunther and Damian Priest. It is what it is when it comes to everybody else. Liv is not the strongest champion in the world, so her losing is not that big a deal. Nia Jax always loses. Candice LeRae always loses. So it is what it is. When you have Bianca and Rhea who almost never lose on the same team, what's the likelihood that your team is going to win? Not much, And the men's War Games was a fun match, even though it's kind of obvious that Roman and Punk were going to win. But at least they played it up like they might have a falling out in the match. So the storyline of Punk and Roman working together in Paul's favor is what we're going with in the future. So Punk's favor, if I had to venture a guess, like a random guess of what CM Punk's favor is going to be, is likely going to be him asking Paul to leave the bloodline. He can still acknowledge Roman Reigns as his tribal chief, but for him to leave. Or maybe asking Paul to be in his corner for a match against somebody in the bloodline or against, for the title or something like that. he may ask for his managerial services. Or maybe they'll do something slick like, Paul to get him a title match or get him a match with somebody. I'm very interested in what it's going to be. That's the most interesting bit coming out of this thing, is that Punk is now owed a favor by Paul Heyman, who is still serving as the wise man for Roman Reigns. So I'm guessing whatever Phillips' request is going to be detrimental to Roman Reigns and detrimental to Roman Reigns' relationship with Paul Heyman. And that's the soap opera that sells tickets, because I know I'm not the only one interested in what they're going to do going forward. I'm also interested in what the new bloodline, even Solo and his crew, as much as they're kind of cringe, well, Solo is anyway, I'm kind of interested in where they go from here. I would imagine this feud is not over because Roman has not wrestled Solo one-on-one. So I would guess that's the next step, is Roman versus Solo, or Roman versus Jacob Fatu or something like that, one-on-one. But let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you folks later.